Cute Treasure+Group Pet+Live Broadcast+Brother+Mystery+Shuangwen, Yao Yao is a naturally gluttonous cub, capable of eating up to half a mountain. One day, the old Taoist who adopted Yao was enthroned. In order to have enough food, at the age of 3.5, she had to carry a small bag and go down the mountain to find the master. By accident on the road, he saved a wealthy tycoon from a car accident and became the adopted daughter of the Gu family. At first, everyone in the Gu family opposed it. Mrs. Gu knocked on her cane and said, "Take care of someone else's child and be careful not to raise a white-eyed wolf." Gu Xuesong, the owner of the Gu family, said coldly, "I picked it up halfway. Who knows if there's any problem?" From the eldest to the seventh in the Gu family, everyone spoke the same way. No sister. However, this little girl, who was excluded by the whole family, came to the Gu family and solved the problem of her father's unpredictable partnership. There were so many business contracts that they could not be signed. Having cured Gu Laotai's long-standing cold legs, he is now walking briskly like a flying bird. There are also 7 brothers from the Gu family, all of whom have benefited greatly. The Gu family only realized that this was a treasure they had picked up. From then on, the Gu family's art style underwent a sudden change. Mrs. Gu said, "Yao Yao, do you want to eat cream puffs? Grandma will buy them for you." Gu Xuesong said, "Hey, do you want a big plane? Dad has someone drive you over and take you for a ride." The Gu brothers said, "Yao Yao, do you want to?" That's it, Yao Yao managed to get a meal ticket. It's still the top tier. Chapter 2. Sister, your boyfriend has really missed sex. You are listening at novel full.audio. Yao Yao still doesn't know that his little tricks have been exposed, but he doesn't care if he does. Anyway, the other party will come to him sooner or later. She has too much energy on her body, which can basically be said to be a never-ending revenge. One's own talisman can save one's life, but it cannot kill the fierce ghost that has become the climate. However, the more ferocious the better. The deeper the path, the more fragrant it becomes. She hasn't tasted the sinister taste for too long. In the past, on the mountain, there were statues of old Taoist priests and ancestors guarding the area, and no ghost with no eyes dared to come and cause trouble. Even if I come, I won't be able to eat anything hot myself, because I will definitely be taken away by the old Taoist. She went down the mountain with the old Taoist to catch ghosts for the first time. She was quick and ate an arm. Then, I couldn't forget the taste. Yao Yao swallowed his saliva greedily and didn't delay his steps. In no time, he found the person he was looking for. However, the situation seems to be different from what she thought. "You're such a genius, you actually said that my boyfriend cheated me out of money to be with me. If he really wants my money, why doesn't he use the secondary card I gave him? Fortunately, I didn't believe your instigation. You almost caused my mother to break up. This matter can't be resolved. You smashed his stall and then broke his leg for me. I saw a woman about 30 years old standing at a fortune-telling stall under the overpass. She has a bright and vibrant appearance, with a fiery red dress and slightly curled waves that make her look particularly eye-catching. Behind the woman stood 3 5-tall bodyguards. As she spoke, the bodyguards rushed forward. Bang dang, the leading bodyguard kicked the fortune-telling stall over with just one kick, and the red divination stick splashed all over the ground with a loud splash. "How young you are." The vendor saw people coming and splashed oil on the soles of their feet. He was as thin as a bamboo pole, and his Taoist robe was loose, not like it was worn on him, but more like it was hanging on a pole. He has a mouse-like face, fine eyebrows, and a mustache. Originally a shrewd and slippery face, now it looks flustered. This woman is really here. Qin Yun couldn't have imagined that he had followed this woman's suspicion and given a simulated ambiguous statement. In the past, this kind of fortune-telling has been tried and tested repeatedly. After all, women have a sensitivity comparable to that of a great detective in perceiving infidelity, and almost never make any mistakes. However, he underestimated that this woman was actually a romantic brain. He was easily coaxed around by the man and even threw fire on himself. Blood mold has poured out. Looking at the broken stall, Qingyun's heart was dripping with blood, but there was nothing she could do at the moment. There were many of them, so it was important to keep her legs. If caught, it's all over. The woman seemed to have guessed that he would be cunning, and the bodyguards she brought in were all agile. 3 or 5 men with big arms and round waists were grabbing around, and Qingyun was soon caught with a weakness. Benefactor, there's something to say. If you think my divination is wrong, I'll refund you the money. Why bother forcing each other? Please forgive me and forgive me. Qingyun was captured and pressed to the ground, covered in a lot of dust, and he pleaded guilty as if pleasing. The woman sneered at the words and said, "Am I someone who almost has that little money?" She pointed to the flag that had been kicked to the ground and said, "Don't you say it's true, the children and the elderly are innocent. Since you came out to cheat, you should have expected it to be today. Hands on." The woman spoke coldly, and the 3 of them pressed Qingyun's hands and feet, while the other picked up a wooden stick. The stick sliced through the air, and the sharp sound reached her ears. Qingyun struggled and her face turned pale as death. He regrets it to death at this moment. If he had known he had learned some real skills from his master in the past, otherwise he wouldn't have been beaten like he is now. Sure enough, cheating will eventually lead to accidents. Qingyun is so regretful that her intestines are turning blue. With a loud bang, a heavy object fell down. Dead. Dead. Qingyun instinctively closed his eyes, but after waiting for a long time, the pain did not come. He couldn't help but open his eyes in confusion. Before I could see the situation clearly, a silver bell-like childlike voice suddenly came to my ears. "This beautiful sister, breaking a person's leg is not right. Moreover, my mentor didn't make any mistakes in his calculations." Yao Yao blinked his eyes and looked at the woman in the red dress in front of him, her expression very obedient. However, the woman in the red dress would not be deceived by her appearance. After all, she had just witnessed with her own eyes that the bodyguard's heavy stick was broken by the little girl's bare hands. Those meaty little hands, on the contrary, have nothing to do. The woman's eyebrows furrowed tightly. It's not an exaggeration to say it's just a hand or an iron plate. Is this scammer your senior uncle? Yao Yao nodded obediently and replied, "Yes, you can ask if you don't believe me." "Yes. I am his senior uncle." Qingyun saw the woman looking over and quickly shouted. Nonsense, how could he not admit it at this moment? Although he didn't know where the little girl came from, it was obvious that she had skills. By holding onto your thighs at this moment, you can hold on to one leg yourself, and your face has long been abandoned. The woman's gaze scrutinized the 2 of them, but at the same time, she became alert. Since these 2 were from the same family, she would not stand idly by when dealing with that old scammer on her own. "Miss Qing, what should we do now?" The bodyguards couldn't make up their minds and were obviously scared by the move just made. The woman named Qingjie first signaled to the bodyguard not to act recklessly. After all, this child, no matter how strange, is only 3 or 4 years old. If we really take action, we might end up in the bureau. However, not touching doesn't mean not speaking. She frowned and said, "What did you mean by what you said earlier?" Yao Yao didn't take any action when he saw someone, and his shallow eyebrows immediately relaxed, with 2 small pear blossoms on his face. "Pretty sister, didn't she say that my senior uncle broke his leg because he miscalculated?" "But he didn't miscalculate. Your boyfriend did cheat, and you still know the cheating partner." Qingjie was stunned for a moment. She thought the other party would also say some fake empty talk. Who knew that she dared to speak so accurately as soon as she spoke? It really seemed like she had the ability. She couldn't help but furrow her brow. Is there really something wrong with her boyfriend? Seeing someone with a skeptical expression on her face, Yao Yao continued, "Big sister, you hit the water. Your birthplace should be by the seaside, right? Qingjia's beautiful peach blossom eyes suddenly widened. She was indeed from a coastal area, and her father took the whole family there for development when he was young. He was lucky enough to catch the last bus of the economic boom and successfully made a fortune. Afterwards, she settled in the imperial capital. It has been a while since this happened, and even she listened to her elders at home. Yao Yao smiled and said, "Not only that, but your beautiful sister, your parents' palace Tyene has fallen, which means your mother has died early. There are also Qingyang and Mars falling into the Wu palace together. Has your father just married your stepmother in recent years?" Qingjia's breathing stopped at this moment, and her mother passed away due to illness when she was 6 years old. At that time, my mother was only 20.5 years old, which was indeed considered an early death. Just now, the girl calculated that she came from the seaside, perhaps by coincidence, and now she is in love again. However, the most crucial thing is that her father married his little mother. As soon as these words were spoken, Sister Qing knew she might have met a true master. Chapter 1. Descending the Mountain. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Yingjia Mountain, Huiyun Temple. Xiao Yao, Master's deadline is coming soon, and I'm afraid I won't be able to protect you anymore. You've had a big appetite since childhood, and I'm afraid you'll starve to death on the mountain. I remember you, Master Qingyun, did well in the imperial capital. I have written this letter to you. After you go down the mountain and find him, hand it over to him. He will take care of you and his fellow disciples' friendship after reading it. In the backyard of the Taoist temple, in a wing room, an old Taoist with a pale face earnestly explained to the young woman in front of him. It seems that the reason is due to his weak body. He didn't say a long word and it was intermittent. Wu, Master, I don't want you to die, I don't want you to. Nai Tuanzi, also known as Yao Yao in the mouth of Taoist priests. At this moment, she was looking at the Taoist with tearful eyes, wearing a slightly fitting Taoist robe that was dusty and patched in various colors. She didn't want the old Taoist to die, even though he was very poor, so poor that she could only eat 5 meals a day. Sometimes I also pick, until 5 meals are all vegetarian. However, he was her last relative in the world, and she followed him from the moment she had memories. Thinking that after the death of the old Taoist I would never see him again, my round and rolling Baozi face leapt and tears streamed down like pearls. Don't cry, life has its own days. As cultivators, we should be clearer and more open-minded than ordinary people. The old Taoist trembled and reached out his hand, wiping away the tears for his young disciple who had come to the door wall. Perhaps the deadline is approaching, and his words are more confidential than usual from the treatment of the Taoist temple to instructing the young disciple to follow his advice after finding his senior brother. Another thing is that one cannot eat with an open stomach like in a Taoist temple. A child with a big appetite is not liked by adults. Yao Yao originally nodded obediently and comforted the old Taoist, but upon hearing this, her little face suddenly became gloomy and she murmured silently. Master, it seems that she is not doing well in the imperial capital. She didn't even have 5 meals. Suddenly, she became a bit conflicted and decided whether to go find her. The old Taoist didn't understand the feelings of the young disciple. He was looking up at the moment and suddenly felt a little scared to face his ancestors. Huiyun observed his generation, with scattered people. Senior brother has traveled abroad, and his time has come. There is only one thing left. Glancing at the little nanny who was as tall as the bed, the child's background was unclear, but learning mystical techniques can be described as terrifying. Despite his young age, even idle cultivators cannot catch up with him. When he found someone back then, he was extremely happy, thinking that heaven had pitted his Huiyun faction and sent a highly qualified disciple to inherit the mantle. While he could be raised, the old Taoist realized that he, as a young disciple, had a rebellious nature and was unable to take on great responsibilities. Perhaps due to his obsession, the old Taoist closed his eyes and held the hand of little milk Tuanzi, explaining. If there is an opportunity in the future, remember to carry forward my lineage of fire and clouds. If there really is one day, remember to burn a piece of paper for me, so that I will have the face to face my ancestors. I will definitely do it. Yao Yao nodded heavily. Although she was young, she was not sure what carrying forward and expanding meant, but couldn't resist the old Taoist's constant chatter. She roughly understood that carrying forward and expanding meant more pilgrims and more money for incense. Okay. The old Taoist always feels relieved. With the promise of the young apprentice, his obsession was completely dispelled, and his anger burst like a tide, withering away with his description. Master. Yao Yao shouted softly, but this time the old Taoist no longer returned to her with a smile as usual. Her dark grape eyes were covered in mist, with pearls falling down one by one. 2 days later, in front of the Huiyun temple. After burying the old Taoist, it's time to go down the mountain. She carried a small package on her back, containing a dozen or so large pancakes that the old Taoist had baked before swallowing his breath, as well as food items. The small package is packed with bulges. Before leaving, Yao Yao slowly kowtowed 3 times to the ancestral master in the hall. She didn't close the door of the Taoist temple because she had packed away everything valuable. The way down the mountain is somewhat unfamiliar to Yao Yao. She used to be led by an old Taoist, but this time she walked on her own and went in the wrong direction several times in a row. In the end, he descended the mountain without any danger. Looking at the bustling road, a long-lost smile spread on his chubby little face. She used to hear pilgrims say that the mountain was very exciting and she always wanted to go and see it, but at a young age, the old Taoist refused. No one cares now, she can go anywhere. However, before that, she needs to find Master Qingyun. After all, the cake my master left for me cannot last for 2 days. She reached out and took out Zhang Huangfu from her backpack, calculating the birth date and 8 characters of Master Qingyun in order to determine the direction. This is the basic method of Taoist searching for people, where the birth date and 8 characters correspond to the Tian Gang Do Shu, and the Ming and Ming are connected to the destiny line. One end of the life line is connected to the sea of rebirth, and the other end is tied to the body of the mortal world. As people move, the line moves, and searching for the line can help find them. Of course, to achieve this step, Taoist cultivation must reach home. Don't be fooled by your young age, the Taoist techniques are already like palm observation patterns. This is also why the old Taoist dared to let her go down the mountain alone to find someone. She slapped the yellow talisman on herself and recited the talisman. When the mountains are flat, when the ground shrinks, the 3 mountains and 9 lords are urgent like laws. She was covered in a faint yellow halo, and with just a few small steps, the mountains and waters flew back. However, after only 100 or so steps, she had reached the outskirts of the imperial capital city, several tens of kilometers away. The reason why she didn't move in step was because she was afraid that her sudden appearance would scare people. After just rushing, the yellow talisman on her body dimmed by 3 points. Yao Yao put the talisman paper into his bag and was about to enter the city when suddenly the crowd in front of him became agitated. Help! There's a car accident, please help my wife. The speaker was a female voice, full of anxiety and fear. The scene is noisy and chaotic. *Car accident. Yao Yao's expression moved and she walked forward with small steps. She was small and it was easy for her to break through the crowd. Soon, she saw the scene of the accident. The location of the accident was at a crossroads, and the point of impact happened to be the blind spot on the corner. This area is already a high-risk area for accidents, and something happens every now and then. The 2 cars that collided this time were a black and a white one, with their front ends badly damaged. Beside the white sedan, 2 young men and women surrounded a woman in her 40s. The man's suit is straight and looks like a security guard. He is seriously injured and his head is still bleeding, while the girl is the one who just called for help. The two of them were in front of each other, while the woman surrounded in the middle was pale and her ankle was unconsciously bent, indicating a fracture. I didn't want to deal with this little flaw at first. She was about to walk when she suddenly smelled a tempting aroma at the tip of her nose. She had a small problem where she couldn't walk when she smelled something delicious. Yao Yao's eyes searched quickly and quickly confirmed that the smell came from the woman's body. "Madam, it's okay. The ambulance will be here soon." Gan Xiaoying is as anxious as ants on a hot pot at this moment. She shouted for so long, and the people around her who were watching the excitement were getting more and more crowded, so there was no one to help. She was so anxious that her hands were trembling. If the wife of her own family gets into trouble under her own care, with the temper of the master and a few young masters, her life will be ruined. The woman had a gentle temperament and comforted herself in pain, saying, "Xiaoying, don't worry, don't mess around on your own." As he spoke, a slightly older child walked over, holding a twig 2 fingers wide in his hand. "Little girl, are you?" The woman looked at the little girl in front of her in a daze, who was particularly agile. The other person slowly squatted in front of her, seriously looking at her. Legs. Her family is full of kids, so she particularly likes little girls. Even if she doesn't know what people want to do, her expression is still very gentle. However, before she could finish her sentence, the little girl struck out like lightning. She didn't even see what was happening, and the intense pain came instantly. She couldn't help but snort. "Madam!" Gan Xiaoying was immediately shocked and shouted, "Where did the wild child come from? Don't harm our madam." The little girl actually had a wicked heart when she touched his wife's wound. She said, reaching out and pushing towards the person. However, her speed is too slow. Yao Yao reached out and hit her first from behind with the palm of her hand. With a loud bang, Gan Xiaoying couldn't hold on to the force in her opponent's hand and fell hard on her butt. The male bodyguard guarding the area saw the situation and immediately wanted to take action. Unexpectedly, the woman who had endured the intense pain quickly interrupted, "Xiao Zhao, don't do anything." "Yes, madam." Although the bodyguard Xiao Zhao is not clear about the reason, as a bodyguard, he still has to unconditionally obey the instructions of his employer. The woman stopped it not because of the overflowing virgin heart, but because she could feel the tingling sensation on her feet disappear. Based on the previous situation, it is not difficult to guess that her bones are in the right position. How could this be possible? The little girl in front of me is only 4 years old, so young she can do bone grafting. Tell me who believes it. Unfortunately, that's really how it is. The woman was about to ask something, but she quickly fixed the person's feet with branches. She spoke crisply, "I have temporarily fixed the bones for you. Don't move them around, wait for the doctor to handle them." "What will be cured?" Gan Xiaoying, who was muttering on the side and getting up, was stunned when she heard these words. "Ah, could you please, little girl? I didn't expect you to have such skills at a young age." The woman's reaction was obviously faster. She bent her eyebrows and eyes, softly thanking the person, and then she wanted to take money from her bag to thank them. Before she could take any action, the little girl's next words made her scalp tighten. "It's just a bone grafting, it's nothing, but don't rush to thank me. Your trouble hasn't ended yet." "What does it mean?" The woman looked over in astonishment, her big black eyes fixed on the yin energy covering the courtyard. "It smells so good." She unconsciously swallowed her saliva and immediately revealed 2 pointed little tiger teeth. "Because you're about to die." She spoke in a milky tone, but her words left the 3 people present with blank minds. What are you talking nonsense about? My wife is blessed with good luck, how could she possibly? Gan Xiaoying opened her mouth and didn't dare to say that inauspicious word. She looked like a stuffed hedgehog, staring at the little milk ball in front of her with an unpleasant expression. "Don't think you're young, I dare not beat you." Yao Yao didn't even glance at anyone, but instead extended his meaty little hand and gently pointed to the woman's eyebrows. Although it was a meaty little hand, the woman who was hit felt a chill surge towards the heavenly spirit. The courtyard is full of darkness, and the palace of destiny is shrouded in stars. The roots of the mountain have patterns, and disasters lead to illnesses. A good little girl, with her mouth full of lively chatter. The woman listened in confusion and said, "Little girl, is there anything to say about this?" Yao Yao didn't answer, but moved his fingertips. She pointed to the root of a person's mountain, where her nose connects to the atrium, and said, "The root of the mountain gathers chi. This should be the middle and thick, but you have a broken line here, where the defeated chi leads to evil. My master once said, life is alive, death is evil. You have Yin Sha on you, so I said you're going to die." Yao Yao tilted his head and said seriously, "But your spouse's palace is upright, and your children's palace is full. It is a good fate for a lucky star to enter your life. Yin grows and Yang declines, it's more like evil invading the body. A person's destiny is basically predetermined from birth, and it is difficult to make significant changes unless there is a major crisis. The 5 Taoist techniques of Shan, Yi, Ming, Xiang, and Bu, among which Xiang is to use a person's facial features to determine the path of misfortune and good fortune. In physiognomy, there is an unorthodox saying that misfortune never comes singly. The meaning of this statement is that a person will not only encounter one kind of disaster, but often disasters come one after another, especially for those who bear the sign of great calamity. Not only will their luck be difficult, but their spouses and children will inevitably be affected by it, and they will not be able to turn over. But the woman in front of her, on the other hand, was completely opposite. Neither she nor her husband and children could match. With the strong Yin Sha in her eyebrows, Yao Yao concluded that it must be a fierce ghost. This thing is good, it's delicious. She changed her mind to help because of this. What you're saying is all sorts of nonsense. I didn't see it. You're so young, you can still be deceitful. Gan Xiaoying chattered in front of others and said something she didn't understand, but it didn't matter. She understood the last sentence. Isn't this what the legendary celestial masters under the overpass say? If the printing hall turns black, there must be a disaster of blood and light. Nowadays, scammers are using increasingly low-end methods, to the extent that a 3 or 4-year-old child can come out to deceive people. I don't even think about it, this milkmaid hasn't even broken her milk completely. Who would believe what she said? The woman clearly had the same idea, but she didn't speak up. The little girl in front of me is so different. Just put on a misplaced joint for herself, and she can't be an ordinary person. How could you tell the other party's entanglement? Li Gui wouldn't come out in broad daylight, she can't eat it now. She still had to go find her senior uncle, and after some thought, she wanted to find Zhang Huangfu from her bag. Little Peng flipped his hand and folded the talisman paper into a triangular talisman package, placing it in the woman's hand. My master said that meeting is not only a matter of fate, but also a gift from me. It can help you ward off a calamity. The talisman can only be used once. Remember to come find me after use. I'm just on the overpass ahead. That is the endpoint guided by the destiny line. Where is Master Qingyun? Because Li Gui is not a bad street person, it's not easy to encounter him once. So, Yao Yao took it extra seriously to explain. Overpass. Are you really a scammer? The woman shook her head and instinctively grasped the talisman in her hand. For some reason, she suddenly had the illusion that this thing could really save her life. As for the claim that the other party was destined to meet, the woman did not believe it. She saw the little girl's eyes shining as she looked at her, and couldn't help but swallow her saliva. Although she tried her best to hide, at her young age, she still revealed her flaws. Chapter 3. Eating a Big Meal. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Master. How did you calculate it? Qingjie didn't even notice her voice trembling. You should know that his father took his stepmother, which can be said to be her family's secret recipe, and outsiders don't even know about it. Her father and her mother have a good relationship as a young couple. For so many years, her father has been alone, and she feels quite sorry for her. She thinks that as she gets older, she doesn't even have anyone around who knows the heat or the cold. So, when she found out that her grandmother was looking for a partner for her father, she was quite supportive. However, her father has never been attentive. But last year, I didn't know what kind of evil had struck me, so I suddenly brought back a girl who was about her age, and she wouldn't marry anyone other than her. At that moment, Qingjie collapsed because her father had always been a mature and stable man in her mind, and now she suddenly married a little girl who could be his daughter. Isn't this old and unprofessional? And her family also seems to think that this is a scandal. Once it breaks out, the company's stock will definitely plummet. Therefore, this matter has been under constant pressure at home, but Qingjie couldn't bear it. The father and daughter had a big argument, which made her run away from home in anger. And her partner also met during this period. The other person is her favorite appearance, but the family conditions are average. Qingjie didn't hide that she had good conditions. Her boyfriend kept saying that she didn't deserve her, and she didn't mind either. As long as she liked it, it was okay, and anyway, it wasn't lacking in money. But a while ago, she suddenly felt that her boyfriend was strange, suspected of having another woman. For Sister Qing, men can have no money, but they cannot be dirty. She was eager to figure it out, so she used an excuse to get some fresh air and secretly wanted to find someone to investigate her boyfriend. Who knew she had bumped into this fortune teller? Listening to his tone, she suddenly had the idea of divining. The result was that this prodigy was full of nonsense, causing her to fall for it at her boyfriend's place, who even said he suspected him and wanted to break up with him. Qingjie quite likes her boyfriend's face. Since there are no principled issues, she is also willing to coax. However, after coaxing, this hidden loss naturally needs to be accounted for, and that's what happened just now. Sister, don't you know the face of Taoism? It's your face that tells me these things. This. Qingjie couldn't believe it. Could she just look at her face and know so much? But unfortunately, the little girl's calculation is too accurate. I still know the person he cheated on. Who is it? Finally, Qingjie couldn't help but ask the pressing question in her heart. At this moment, she tightly clenched her hands. Since this little master did not lie, the only one lying could be her boyfriend. Thinking of her boyfriend's previously aggrieved expression on her face, she was instantly enraged. This dog man is quite capable of acting. I'll calculate. Ah. She's right at your house now. Sister, run faster, maybe she'll come back and run into her again. Sister Qing. This damn bitch. Qingjie didn't expect the other party to be so shameless. She promised to be wholeheartedly committed and turned around to take the mistress home. This is playing around like a monkey. She didn't care about being a godly person either. At this moment, all she had left in her mind was a single thought: capturing this shameless couple. The bodyguard saw that the owner had withdrawn, but they didn't dare to stay. They quickly followed suit, and when the whole group arrived, they were in a hurry. I'm leaving now. At this moment, Qin Yun, who was no longer restrained, crawled up and down. He rubbed his body up and down and found that his arms and legs were still there. His thin face burst into laughter. After touching it, his gaze naturally fell on the milk ball in front of him, searching for it for a while without leaving any impression. He couldn't help but ask, "Who are you?" Just now this child called him Shibua, but he was actually confused. He doesn't remember what kind of nephew he has. Yao Yao looked at Shibua, who was all disheveled. Her round eyes curved into crescents, and she said crisply, "Qin Yun Shibua, I am Yao Yao, Qin Han is my master." Qin Yun's gaze paused for a moment, but he also remembered, "Are you the disciple who received the closed door from Qin Han Jr. brother a few years ago?" It's me. Qin Yun was actually surprised now. This child has only been at the entrance wall for 2 years, and he has such skills now. Qinghan junior brother is really lucky. Just, why did you come down the mountain? What did Qinghan do? They have a lineage of fiery clouds, and there are rules for entering the world, except for the leader, because they have to keep an eye on their family. But that must be when the disciple reaches adulthood or has achieved great cultivation, at an age where they can distinguish right from wrong. What are these 3-year-old babies sent down the mountain for? Maybe he gave someone a lollipop and abducted it, and his Huiyin temple's inheritance was broken. Qin Yun couldn't help but feel angry when he thought about this moment. Although his cultivation was poor, he genuinely believed that Huiyin temple was a family. Who doesn't miss the achievements of the younger generation in revitalizing the sect? Kaiwen Guan's incense is thin, and he can't attract good seedlings at all. He has been hanging his breath in despair. Now it's finally easy. My junior brother picked up a treasure and didn't take good care of it. Still rushing up and down the mountain. What a fool. If it weren't for the difficulty of going back, he would definitely point at someone's nose and curse. However, before he could express his emotions, the little girl before the meeting pouted and her eyes turned red. Master, my master has gone extinct. The two Buddhist and Taoist cultivators generally do not say, death, but rather entering and disappearing, meaning that their souls return to heaven and their flesh returns to the earth. Qin Yun, who was about to passionately express himself, suddenly got stuck. He stiffly turned his head and said, in. Out. How could it be like this? Qin Yun is clear about his own junior brother's abilities. Although he is still far from being a master, he is hidden in the temple with the help of the ancestral deity statue. Even if he is a formed fierce ghost, he can easily kill it. Why did he die so early? Yao Yao shook his head and said, Master didn't explain the reason to me. I only know that he came back from doing something down the mountain once, and his whole body was covered in blood. Since then, his body has been deteriorating day by day. A few days ago, he left after explaining his last words. He asked me to bring you a letter, saying that you will understand after reading it. As Yao Yao spoke, his little hand reached into the package and took out the letter. Qin Yun picked it up and looked at it. After a while, his eyebrows gradually relaxed. In the letter, Qin Han did not mention how he was injured, but only said one thing from beginning to end, which was to take care of his little disciple. He said the child can eat it, not just to her taste. In addition, there are some trivial instructions about taking care of children that Qin Yun couldn't help but sneer at after reading them. Isn't it just a 3-year-old baby? How big an appetite can be. Over the years, junior brother Qinghan has been in charge of the internal reward system and has become increasingly stingy. No need for him to say, as the only disciple of the sect with Taoist teachings, Yao Yao's future development of the Huiyin sect still depends on her. How could she not take good care of herself? Not to mention the big money, he still has money for food and drink. After all, he is a fraud, not right. He has been telling fortune for many years, so he has some savings to some extent. Qin Yun straightened his robe, dusted off the dust, and didn't mention anything about his embarrassing appearance just now. He asked towards the milk bun, Are you hungry? Master, will you take you to eat? I was stunned for a moment. I didn't expect Master to be so kind and treat me to food as soon as I arrived. Suddenly, the image of Sherbua in her heart instantly rose to prominence. Can you eat meat? She said with a soft little brainwave. These days, she has been eating pancakes every day, and there is no taste in her mouth. It's too uncomfortable. Qin Yun frowned. Junior brother, can't even afford meat. This feedback management is really a failure, it's better to do well outside. Of course we can, but we need to eat a little less. After all, we can't eat every day anymore because we eat too much at once. Yao Yao nodded and said, I understand. Master once said that life should flow smoothly, so I won't eat too much. Seeing her so sensible appearance, Qin Yun couldn't be too pleased. He silently added a point to his junior brother in his heart. At least the child is taken care of quite well. Teach obediently, wisely, and with moderation. Qin Yun simply liked it more and more as he looked, and then waved his hand as he walked towards the restaurant. Both the older and younger generations have not yet realized the seriousness of inviting guests for both of them. Chapter 4. Eating Bankruptcy. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Boss, then. Woo-woo. Qin Yun saw that Che's nephew was about to speak up, so he quickly covered the person's mouth. As the boss's gaze swept over him, he chatted and said, "No, it's okay, this child is barking nonsense." "Oh, I thought we had to continue." The boss looked at the stacked bowls on the table and said with a smile, "Don't worry, your child has the best appetite I've ever seen at her age." Upon hearing this, Qin Yun's face became even more bitter. Yes, whose family's serious child would order more than 10 times after a meal? After the boss left, he suppressed his throat and said seriously to his nephew who was covered in his mouth, "Oh no, I can't eat anymore." "Why?" Shubwa said to eat casually, didn't he? "You haven't eaten enough yet." Yao Yao opened her innocent big eyes and reached out to touch her belly. There were still many empty spaces left. Qin Yun was silenced by the dead child's question, and he trembled as he counted the bowls in front of the table with his divine gaze. 1 bowl, 2 bowls, 3 bowls, 5 bowls, 9 bowls. 9 whole bowls. Thinking of the unit price of a bowl, he couldn't help but feel a sense of bankruptcy. He said he can eat whatever he wants, that's for normal people. Who is a serious family? A 3.5-year-old child can eat 9 bowls. At first, junior brother Qin Han claimed in his suicide letter that she could eat, but he thought it was a bit exaggerated. Now it seems that he has never seen the world before. No wonder junior brother inherits the Taoist temple and instead lives so cautiously. He has raised a gold-swallowing beast. If you save money, that's really what's going on. Qin Yun shrugged his neck and said, "Master, you don't have any money left. If you eat any more, you'll have to pay off your debt here." Although it's a bit embarrassing to say that you don't have money at this time, it's better than waiting for someone to pay when they don't have enough money, and being mistaken for eating a domineering meal. He doesn't want to be confined to the shop as a dishwasher when he gets old, that's really losing face. Then. I won't eat any more. Master, don't leave me behind. Yao Yao was so scared that he put down his chopsticks with a snap, looking really full. She scratched her head in frustration, feeling a bit worried. Just now, she was so greedy that she forgot her master's advice. Sure enough, a greedy child will be abandoned. She won't be greedy anymore and will only eat 10% in the future. If not, it's still 20% full. At the same time, Yao Yao also realized that Shurbo's words of letting go and eating could not really be completely released. The adult world is really complicated, she doesn't even know that sentence is true. Well, it's good when you're full. Qin Yun looked a little more obedient when he saw that the person was still obedient. However, seeing the child's worried expression, he thought for a moment and decided to salvage his image. "Next time, Master will bring you to eat," he said. "Okay, senior uncle, you're so kind." Yao Yao nodded obediently, but her eyes were not as hopeful. Because her master always says the same thing, but every time he says that, he has to wait for a long time. "Master, where are we going now?" Since there was no food left to eat, it would be boring to stay any longer, so I felt a bit tired and covered my small mouth. She usually takes a nap at this time. Today, she was delayed on her way, but she still fell asleep on time, especially after finishing her meal. She persevered and asked. Qin Yun smiled and said, "Go home first. When you've slept enough, we'll talk about the rest." Although my nephew almost ruined him, he was always lonely and suddenly had a child with him, which was quite interesting. And, since my nephew has real skills, does that mean I don't have to bluff anymore? Not only can you make money, but you don't have to be afraid of people coming to pick on you. At this thought, his heart for dim sum was suddenly blown away. As for the fact that his cultivation as an elder is far inferior to that of a little doll, he automatically ignored it. Don't ask, it's just that God didn't reward him with food. Upon hearing that she was sleeping, Yao Yao immediately cheered. The place where Qin lives is not far from the overpass. It only took about 10 minutes to walk past, and it was a small and narrow coffin room, a square room with only a bed and a table. The covers and pillows on the bed are all gray, either dirty or this color. Qin has no other problems, but he is a bit fond of cleanliness. There are also several unpainted yellow papers, cinnabar, and a brush holder neatly placed on the table. Give your little bag to senior uncle. You've been exhausted from carrying it all the way, so let's take a break. Qin glanced at the person's bulging little bag and saw that he had stuffed something inside. On the way, he asked if he wanted to help. The child said he could do it himself, so he didn't ask much. Now that you're in the room, it's not good to carry it on your back. Yao Yao also knew, so she smiled and took the package off her body, handing it over. Seeing her holding it lightly, Qin instinctively didn't think about how much it would weigh, so he went to pick it up with one hand. Result: his immense strength almost made him perform his ascension in place. Oh no, how many things have you put in this bundle? Why is it so heavy? Qin used all his strength to barely grab his hands, causing his face to turn red and his neck to thicken. He used all his strength to suckle and gradually moved to the corner of the wall. With a loud thud, the package hit the floor, and it took him a long time to straighten up, his face filled with sighs. If my little nephew carries this burden every day, he won't be too burdened to grow taller, will he? In the future, the Xian men will hold a grand meeting, and their Huiyin temple master will be 1.3 meters tall. Can't this be laughed at to death? Qin suddenly had a thought that he couldn't let his little nephew carry this ghost anymore. When asked what was in her bag, Yao Yao instinctively said, "There's nothing. It's just some small things." Upon hearing this, Qin's face was full of suspicion. What little thing is as heavy as a soldering iron? Watching the person's somewhat evasive gaze, he suspected that this small group might not even remember how much it had been stuffed into it. But it doesn't matter, there will be opportunities to see it in the future. If you're tired, go to bed first. Master, there's something else to do. Go out for a walk. Qin is a bit old, doesn't get much sleep every day, and has long lost the habit of taking a nap at noon. And this bed is also small, he wants the child to sleep more comfortably. Yao Yao nodded obediently. She was already too tired to open her eyes. After listening to Master's words, she quickly took off her outer robe and crawled onto the bed. She flipped back and forth and found that Sherbua's bed was much softer than the one in the observation room, and the pillow and quilt had a faint fragrance of soapberry. She really likes this taste, and her master also likes to wash things with soap pods. They even planted several soap pod trees in their backyard. The familiar smell and soft bed made me snore lightly shortly after. Qin couldn't help but laugh at the situation. He carefully covered the corner of the blanket and tiptoed out of the door. Uncle and nephew have been quiet in these years. At this moment, the wealthy families in the capital are in chaos. Chapter 5. Chasing Evil. You are listening at novel-full.audio. In the master bedroom of the Gu family, a private doctor fixed Chen Hui's legs and examined other physical conditions. He turned his head and said to Mr. Gu, who was guarding on the side, "Mrs. Gu's health is not a big problem. The injury on her foot was treated promptly, and after a few days of careful treatment, there was no major problem." Gu Xuesong said, "Thank you, doctor. Xiaoying, take the doctor out." He unbuttoned his suit and sat by his wife's bed with a worried expression, saying, "Let you rest at home and not wander around. You know how anxious I was when I heard the news of an accident. If something really happens to you, what will I do in the future? Gu Xuesong is over 50 years old, but he is well maintained with no white hair on his head. He is a well-known Confucian businessman in his circle. Outsiders may not know that the leader of the Gu family has unlimited fame outside, but at home he is a down-to-earth wife slave. This time his wife had an accident, he was a bit scared and had an irregular heartbeat. Fortunately, after his wife's examination, there were no problems, so his heart calmed down a bit. Isn't this okay with me? Don't worry too much either. Chen Hui reached out and patted the back of her husband's hand. Speaking of today's experience, she still felt a bit sad. I didn't expect to be saved by a little doll at my age. Cedar, we can't be ungrateful. You help me find someone here so that I can thank her in person. Gu Xuesong frowned and said, Xie definitely wants it, but if you're like this now, don't worry. I'll let the people below handle it. For the Gu family, both money and power are not lacking. It's too easy to thank a little doll. However, Chen Hui shook her head and said, it's different. I'm destined to follow the child. If you don't agree, then I'll find someone else myself. Okay, I can't do it for you yet. Gu Xuesong is aware of his wife's personality, and if he doesn't agree, she will definitely do what she says. As the couple was speaking, they saw a figure rushing in with great urgency. Mom, I heard from home that you had a car accident. Is there anything wrong? The one who came was a boy in his early 17s and 8s, dressed very well, with yellow hair on his head. Because he was running too fast, he had a bit of difficulty breathing. What are you talking about? What do you look like? When Gu Xuesong saw this son, his refined face almost couldn't hold back. He never expected that this old man himself was not here to repay kindness, but rather to seek revenge. Gu had long been accustomed to his father's strange energy and simply turned a blind eye. Alright, is it interesting for your father and son to argue every day? Chen Hui knew that the two of them could still get along at first, but later on, his younger son refused to listen to arrangements and insisted on entering the entertainment industry. Starting as some idol celebrity, the two of them completely turned into enemies, and as soon as they met, they choked on fire and couldn't stop it. Xiaoyu, Mom's okay. Aren't you filming out of town? Why did you suddenly come back? Yesterday's sales were closed, but the company called me back unexpectedly. Gu saw that his mother was fine, so he calmed down all the way. He was about to sit for a while when he asked his father to stop him. I've seen it too. Let's go out and rest for your mother. My son has a bad temper. He stays in this room, his mouth is not at all idle, and his wife can't rest well. Hey, when I say Lao Gu, you're not authentic anymore. I'm just. Hey, we heroes don't mention the back collar, Gu Xuesong is too lazy to talk nonsense. Despite his elegance, he is actually covered in tendons and flesh, carrying his youngest son is like carrying a chicken cub. Take a good rest. I'll find you the person now. Before Gu Xuesong left, he turned his head and said. Chen Hui nodded. Her husband was at ease with her affairs, and after a day of turmoil, she was also a bit tired. Her head was against the pillow, and she fell asleep in a daze. I don't know if she's tired, but her dream after dream makes her a bit confused about reality. And in these clips, there is always a gray-white figure staring at her with a cold and resentful gaze. What's even more terrifying is that it kept getting closer to itself, until the last time it became conscious, a figure suddenly appeared in front of her, with pale fingers tightly gripping her neck. The tremendous force made her gasp for breath, and at this moment, she finally saw the figure clearly. That's a disheveled woman, she has no face. Originally the position of the face, it was empty, and its skin was wriggling and even tearing apart bit by bit. In the crack, she saw the other person's mouth like a suction cup, with sharp teeth densely covering his head, which was terrifying and terrifying. As the terrifying mouthpiece was about to bite her, Chen Hui's palm suddenly felt a burning sensation. A golden light suddenly appeared, and the shameless grey image was a hot oil that was scorching hot, instantly fading away, with a mournful roar piercing into the eardrums. Ah! With a release of the restraint on his body, Chen Hui suddenly sat up in shock, his forehead covered in cold sweat. Is it a dream? This is too real. What exactly is that white shadow? She gasped for breath and looked around in shock, realizing that she was in her own bedroom and instinctively wanted to breathe a sigh of relief. But suddenly, her fingers touched a ball of something, and she froze completely because she remembered the strange feeling of her palms becoming hot just now. Chen Hui trembled as she lifted the blanket and opened her hand, only to see the talisman wrapped in her palm before going to bed, now burned to ashes. At that moment, her breathing stopped. "Madam, what happened?" "Gan Xiaoying has been guarding outside all along." When she heard the commotion inside the room, she quickly came in. However, after seeing the lady's appearance clearly, her eyes widened and she trembled, saying, "Madam, your neck." Upon hearing this, Chen Hui paused and quickly took the mirror placed on the bedside table. The mirror turned upside down, and she finally saw the condition of her neck through the light. "I saw a circle of red and purple pinch marks on my originally fair skin, and just by looking at the marks, you can tell how hard the other person was using it." "Who is it, who is trying to harm you?" Gan Xiaoying was so angry that she was about to explode. She was guarding outside and there were so many bodyguards at home. Who could silently run into the room and strangle Madam like this? If this force persists for a while, her heart was beating like a drum, and she couldn't imagine what the old man would look like when he came back and saw his wife's expression. Surprisingly, it's not a dream. It's true. At this moment, Chen Hui's heart sank to the bottom of the valley in an instant. The grey shadow in her dream could never be a good thing. This time it couldn't kill itself, so she definitely wouldn't give up easily. After all, when the other party retreated, she remembered the resentful gaze very clearly. She can avoid a disaster, but what about next time? For a moment, too many doubts surged in her mind, and suddenly a crisp voice from a small milk ball came to her mind. "After using the talisman, remember to come find me." Yes. Fu, it was that Fu that saved her. That talisman was given to herself by the little doll during the day, and she still asked me to find her. Does it mean that she has a way to solve her current problem? Chen Hui looked like a drowning person, suddenly grabbing a life-saving straw. She quickly looked at Xiaoying and urgently asked, "Sir?" She still remembers that before going to bed, her husband helped her find someone. Gan Xiaoying was a bit frightened by the appearance of her wife. First, "Sir, he went out with the young master and said he was looking for the little girl who saved his wife during the day. He went there for a while and should be back soon." "Madam, are you okay?" Upon hearing this, Chen Hui took a deep breath and said, "I'm fine. You go call the gentleman and ask them to come back as soon as possible." After finishing speaking, she looked at the bustling room and suddenly changed her voice, "Let someone else make the phone call, stay with me." She didn't know exactly where the grey shadow was hiding, but the thought of it still being in this room made Chen Hui shiver all over. Chapter 6. Gu Family, Big Villa. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. Extended version, inside Rolls-Royce RV. Are you my mother's little benefactor? Isn't this too young? Are you 4 years old? Do you still drink milk? Gu looked curiously at the little girl sitting in her seat, swaying her legs and chattering incessantly. Before he came here, he had no idea that the little benefactor in his mother's mouth was so small. Is there any mistake? I'm not 4 years old, but I'm weaned. Yao Yao frowned. This little brother is impolite. A toddler who doesn't know how to walk hasn't been weaned. She's almost 4 years old, so how could she not have been weaned? She reached out her meaty little hand and pressed it onto her mouth, saying, "This is the last question. If you ask me again, I won't answer you. Gu Yu was extremely well liked by the little nanny who ignored him and even brought advance notice. He was afraid that the other party was not joking and would never ask. Gu Xuesong was also somewhat surprised when he saw this. No one in the whole family could cure his little son's broken mouth, but the little girl did it. Could you please follow me on this trip? My wife wants to thank you in person. If you have anything you want, you can think of it and say it directly now. Gu Xuesong showed an apology on his face. He didn't spend too much time searching for someone, or rather didn't find them at all. He followed his wife's instructions and arrived at the overpass, where the little girl had found them herself. I'm a bit hungry, can I have something to eat? Upon hearing that she could make a request, Yao Yao's eyes lit up and she reached out to rub her deflated belly. She hasn't eaten for 4 hours now. If she doesn't eat again, she won't be able to beat that fierce ghost in a while. Sorry, this child has a big appetite and can't tolerate hunger. Qin Yun looked at Gu Xuesong who was stunned, awkwardly scratched his head, and quickly signaled to his nephew. At first glance, this person is a big customer who is not short of money. He said he can make demands. What a great opportunity is this. Not to mention asking for hundreds of thousands, tens of thousands are always possible. How much can a little bit of food be worth? For his expression, Yao Yao had no understanding at all. His big black eyes blinked, filled with seriousness and longing. Gu Xuesong was in a difficult position because he didn't put any food in the car, and the car was currently driven in a wrong position with no shops around. For a moment, I didn't know where to go for someone to do it. What you want to eat, tell me earlier. I have it in my bag. Just as everyone was staring, Gu Yu couldn't help but try to shut up. He came back from a business trip without even sitting on a chair, and naturally carried his bag all the way. On his business trip, he would buy a bunch of snacks every time, and now he saw that the milk bun was hungry. He quickly took it out of his bag. Potato chips, cheese sticks, dried mango, one zai milk. The bag is not big, it contains quite a lot of things. Little benefactor, I'll give you all of this. If it's not enough, there's still a lot at home. I'll give you all the food when I go back. Gu Yu kindly tore open a packet of potato chips and handed them to the person. Yao Yao's nose twitched and her eyes lit up. She had never eaten potato chips before, but they smelled too fragrant and the taste was definitely not bad. At this moment, she immediately put aside the harsh words she had just said, and her chubby little hand picked up a shiny yellow potato chip and put it into her mouth. Crunchy with a rich tomato aroma. At this moment, Gu Yu opened a can of wangzi, and the milk aroma was even more appetizing. This little brother is quite kind. Forget it, the master said to forgive and forgive others. She will reluctantly forgive him. So, with each sip of potato chips and milk, the discomfort made her eyebrows curl up. Well done. Gu Xuesong rarely spoke up and praised his youngest son once. At this moment, his phone suddenly rang and he took it over to take a look. The caller ID displayed on it was from the villa. Gu Xuesong's gaze paused and he immediately answered the phone. Master, it seems that there is something wrong in Madam's room, and she is quite frightened. Please come back quickly. The voice on the other end of the phone was the nanny at home. When he heard something wrong at home, he instinctively squeezed his phone. Take care of your wife, we'll be back soon. Gu Xuesong forced himself to calm down and instructed the nanny to do some things. After that, he hung up the phone and turned to ask the driver to speed up. What's going on at home again? Gu Yu suddenly had a bad premonition when he saw his father's expression. Gu Xuesong shook his head. He doesn't know the situation either. Yu's mother didn't say anything on the other end of the phone, so it's probably not a big deal. This can be confirmed. The father and son rarely fell silent, wondering why strange things kept happening today. First there was a car accident, and now there is still an accident at home. The two of them are atheists, otherwise they would have thought they had collided with something unclean. Don't worry, it was injured today and won't come immediately to cause trouble. At this moment, Yao Yao suddenly spoke without warning, and her words instantly caught the attention of the two. Little benefactor, what do you mean by causing trouble? Gu furrowed his brow, knowing that he recognized every word of the other person, he couldn't understand them even when they were connected. Gu Xuesong is generally in this state. Yao Yao took a sip of wangzi and swallowed it beautifully. She looked at the two people in confusion and said, don't you know? The things that got entangled with Aunt Chen just went to your house, that's why something happened. However, the spell I gave worked and it ran away. I personally approached the Gu family father and son this time in order to catch it. She is not afraid that the ghost will not come out. The reason why the fierce ghost exists is because of the obsession that cannot be dispelled before death. It entangles with Chen Hui, so only by killing her can obsession be understood and truly transcend causality. Gu Yu. Gu Xuesong. Their first reaction upon hearing the little doll's words was disbelief. How can there be ghosts in this world? But this idea is not so firm at the moment, because they cannot find a reason for the other party to deceive themselves. Picture money. Everyone has saved their family once, and if you want a lot of money, you can ask for it generously. Will you still refuse to give it yourself? So, there's absolutely no need to tell this lie. At this moment, the father and son of the Gu family felt that something was starting to collapse. The car quickly arrived at the villa, and the nanny was waiting at the door. She quickly stepped forward. Where's madam? After getting off the car, Gu Xuesong directly asked about the situation that was not clearly explained on the phone. In the bedroom, Xiaoying has been accompanying me all along. Well, good. Gu Xuesong nodded and turned around. Undoubtedly, he is one of the wealthy merchants in the capital, how luxurious he is. Qin Yun looked at the huge villa and couldn't help but widen his eyes. He tugged at the whitewashed Taoist robe on his body, looking a bit reserved. At this moment, Yao Yao also moved her small body and got out of the car. She glanced at the huge villa, and a hint of envy flashed in her big eyes. She used to hear her master say that wealthy people live in big villas, so it's really so big. I don't know how many delicious things can be exchanged for such a big house. This thought flashed through my heart. Yao Yao didn't forget the main task she had come to do, so she walked straight towards the villa. The other few quickly followed, apparently with each other as the main focus. This. The nanny couldn't help but widen her eyes upon seeing this. She never expected that the teacher would come back with a child after going out, and it was very cute and pure. Just, how do you feel like this little nanny is the leader? She paused and was surprised by her own ideas. Chapter 7. Exorcism. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. The Gu family villa is very large and winding. I couldn't find a room on my first visit, but obviously there is no such problem, and there is no need to even calculate. Chen Hui's bedroom had extremely strong yin energy, which was as obvious as a huge light bulb in her eyes. Does the little benefactor know the way? As he watched the familiar person find the room, Guyu was a bit stunned. He could be certain that the other person had never been to the house. The more incredible what she did, the more uneasy she felt in her heart, because this also confirms that she is not simple. So, the more the statement on the car can stand firm. At the moment of entering the room, Yao Yao's gaze fell on Chen Hui, who was leaning against the bed. At this moment, her face turned pale and her eyes were flustered. She would occasionally glance at the door, clearly waiting for something. As for the book in hand, she can't read a single word. This time, she was still accustomed to raising her eyes, but her gaze fell on a pair of round grape eyes. She was momentarily stunned and immediately recognized the person coming. Little benefactor, you have finally come. Chen Hui was excited all over. If it weren't for the plaster on her feet, she would have gotten out of bed long ago. Like grabbing a life-saving straw, Gan Xiaoying beside her was completely stunned. It seems that I didn't expect the lady's attitude to change so much. This can't be blamed on Chen Hui, it was just an experience that completely shattered her previous worldview. When a person is in a precarious situation, emotional fluctuations are most intense. At this moment, the father and son of the Gu family who were following behind also came in, and the two of them came to the bed. Why did you suddenly put on a scarf? Gu Xuesong glanced at the abnormality on his wife's neck and frowned. Chen Hui's eyes were a bit evasive because she knew her husband was an atheist, and he was afraid it would be difficult for him to accept her own affairs. Did you see that thing? Yao Yao suddenly broke the conversation between the two, and Chen Hui nodded immediately upon hearing Yen. I saw it, little benefactor. What exactly is that? She actually wanted to ask why she had to cling to herself. But she knows that things need to be done one by one, asking too many questions, and others don't know which one to answer first. Mom, what are you talking about? Guyu looked speechless, and indeed the riddle person was the most annoying person in this world, even his own mother was no exception. Gu Xuesong remained much more calm, frowning and listening attentively. Yao Yao. It's a fierce ghost. She gave Chen Hui a talisman to break evil spirits, mainly targeting ghosts and demons. Most of the latter is the essence of animals, and most of them are absorbed by flesh and blood and the essence of the sun and the moon, so there is no yin in them. But ghosts are different, they have no substance, and without a physical body, they are pure soul bodies. Yin Qi and Sha Qi can nourish them and even strengthen their soul bodies. So, ghosts with Taoist beliefs can basically guess their strength based on yin energy. From the situation of yin qi in the room, it is obvious that the thing has eaten people. Yao Yao was actually happy about this. Because if you have eaten someone, you will have a karmic barrier. There is an unwritten rule in the Xianmen. Ghosts without karma cannot be killed. Once killed, it will be affected by causality. Cause and effect are invisible and intangible, but they are real. Once they break through the red line set by heaven and earth, they may not know how to die. Yao Yao doesn't understand these things. She has her own understanding, which is that ghosts who kill can eat them. The one next to Chen Hui can obviously be included in the recipe. Don't worry, I can tidy it up, she said with a smile as Yao Yao's face burst into laughter. Thank you, little benefactor. Chen Huiyuan was originally afraid, after all, that was a fierce ghost. Now that the little benefactor spoke, she suddenly felt relieved. As for why not doubt the other person's ability? The power of that talisman is enough to prove it. I know you have a problem, but after reading this, you won't doubt it. Chen Hui glanced at the puzzled father and son, forced her lips, and then reached out to remove the scarf from her neck. The purple, red and black pinch marks suddenly appeared. Under the warm white light, it is particularly frightening. The father and son of the Gu family stood up, their faces changing. Damn it! Guyu's face was instantly filled with anger, and the pinch marks were so shocking that he couldn't even imagine how painful it was. Gu, from head to toe, used to be reluctant to let someone break a piece of oily skin. Now that he suddenly got injured like this, his eyes turned red with anger. Did it make it? On the way to Gu Xuesong, he actually wavered. His wife was injured like this at home, and he even confirmed his guess. After all, the security guards in the Gu family were all elites, so he was not surprised at all. It's absolutely abnormal to be able to do this. Chen Hui, seeing that her husband had accepted well, nodded without any consideration and said, well, it was the talisman given to me by my benefactor that helped me escape a disaster, which can be considered as saving my life again. Speaking of this, she still feels a bit sad. It would be embarrassing if someone were saved twice in a row on the same day. Seeing his wife admit, Gu Xuesong's refined expression slightly changed, while his gaze fell on the small group in front of him. Thank you, little benefactor. Since you have the ability to deal with it, please help us take care of our family. If you need anything, as long as Gu can do it, he will definitely not say no. He knew that although he had money, he was still just an ordinary person, and he was at a loss to deal with such ghosts and monsters. No wonder his wife insisted on asking him to find someone. It's important to be here. He couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Fortunately, he listened to her words and set off immediately. Otherwise, he really didn't know how to deal with it at this moment, and he would definitely not be able to accept someone causing an accident. Yes, if the little benefactor can save my mother, I'll give you all my snacks from now on. Gu noticed that the little benefactor seemed to enjoy eating, so he immediately made a promise to cater to his preferences. And as expected, compared to Gu Xuesong's promise, the latter's words can move me more. With a meaty little hand, Yao Yao patted his chest and promised, leave it to me. Seeing how readily she agreed, Qin Yun on one side couldn't help but feel a bit anxious. Although he knows that his little nephew's cultivation is not bad, now he is really going to fight against the fierce ghost. She is so young, and if something happens to her, who should he reason with? But the words had already been spoken, and he couldn't make anyone change his mind. He could only ask in a suppressed voice, girl, you can give master a thorough understanding. You have a few % confidence. The rise and fall of their lineage are all weighing on my nephew. We don't want to just pick on the big beam when our minds are hot. Upon hearing this, Yao Yao extended a hand and slowly spread it out. 50%. Qin Yun saw this and was so scared that the tail notes were a bit off-center. You should know the old rule of Huiyun Temple, under 80%, you will never act recklessly. Now you tell me 50%, isn't this a pure gift? No, I can't take on this job. Qin Yun's mentality is about to collapse, and his mind is crazily thinking about how to find a way to successfully run away without offending his family. But soon, he realized it was impossible, either of them had to be impossible. He had a bitter expression on his face, but in the end, his life still mattered. Qin Yun tried hard to explain, but was suddenly interrupted by the sound of a milky voice. Master Qin Yun, not 50%. What I want to say is, I can fight 5 at a time. A dozen to 5, that's also very dangerous. Wei. Wu. It was also very dangerous for Qin Yun to subconsciously want to say, but after all, his brain reacted before he finished speaking. So, as if his words were burning his lips, he suddenly turned a big corner before leaving, almost causing his tongue to flicker. Chapter 10. Behind the Scenes Black Hand. You are listening at novel-full.audio. Got that, troublemaker? The Gu family was alarmed when they heard this news, and room lights lit up one by one. Half an hour later, everyone gathered in the room. Is it trying to harm my mother? Gu looked at the thing trapped in the formation at this moment. The latter's limbs were hanging up, and its entire body was spread out in a large character. A talisman nail was nailed in the center of its chest, dispersing its yin energy and making it unable to lift the fierce spirit's flame. It came to harm my mother once today, but I didn't expect it to be brave enough to come back, and then I caught it. Yao Yao nodded. She was supposed to eat the ghost directly, but after taking a bite, she realized something was wrong. This ghost has the means left by a mysterious person, and she is still a ghost slave. She suddenly became interested. If you're willing to speak up, who sent you here? I can see you off without scattering you, Yao Yao said seriously, holding his small head. You should know that people in the Xianmen are not allowed to cultivate ghosts and monsters without authorization, especially those who are strictly prohibited from engaging in blood debts. Once discovered, everyone in the Xianmen will be punished. Yao Yao originally thought it was just a simple revenge of a fierce ghost, but he didn't expect it to involve the underworld. If he didn't investigate thoroughly, the danger on Chen Hui's body would not be relieved. The methods of the underworld can sometimes be overwhelming. She really likes Chen Hui, this new mother, and doesn't want her to get into trouble. And if that's the case, it's like a landmine falling from the ground, causing the human brain in the room to buzz. Could it be a mistake? Who would have put so much effort into dealing with a wealthy lady like me? Chen Hui's face remained pale at the moment. However, compared to just now, her emotions were much more stable. When she heard her daughter say that this ghost was being manipulated to deal with her, she looked incredulous. Mom, you can't make a mistake. Yao Yao pointed to the new Yin in the center of the faceless ghost's forehead and said, this kind of soul-locking seal is written in the book. Seeing her confident, the Gu family immediately fell silent, and even the noisy Gu Yu realized the seriousness and closed his mouth. You should know that there is a character who can control the evil spirits and keep an eye on them, which is much more dangerous than the evil spirits. Oh, do you have a way to help Gu? Dad, can you find out who it is? Gu Xuesong changed his mind to the little benefactor, feeling a bit inexperienced. Since his wife likes it, Yao Yao is also very kind to them and takes care of their family. It's not a problem to support this as a daughter. Moreover, the little girl in vain is so skilled that they can be said to be the smoke from their ancestral graves. At this moment, even though Yao is only 3.5 years old, she is the backbone of the house. Dad Gu, the normal way is not to ask. Yao Yao shook his head slowly. She injected a heart-piercing nail into the chest of the fierce ghost, and the talisman on it constantly burned the ghost's soul, as well as devouring the soul-cracking formation. Even so, this fierce ghost still doesn't speak. There is only one possibility, it really can't speak. Is there any abnormal means? Gu Heng, the leader of the Gu family, raised his eyebrows and asked. He can be said to be a true heir to his father's business, but at the age of 27, he started several companies of his own, which are not small in scale and can be considered a rising star in the business district. Today, the 7 brothers of the Gu family, except for the eldest and 7th who are at home, the remaining 5 are all outside. Gu Xuesong has already called and asked them to come back every 2 days, except for the monthly family gathering, mainly to recognize their new sister. In addition, he is also planning to hold a big family banquet and invite friends from the circle to come over. After all, his daughter who cares about the family must have this plaque. Silently, without giving a place, this does not conform to their family-oriented demeanor. Well, I can't ask, I can only do it myself. Yao Yao nodded her little head, her face a bit conflicted. However, I haven't used this much before. It's very likely that when I finish searching, it will die. Her death means her soul is shattered, and she doesn't even have a chance to be reborn. If she can find any clues, it's okay, but if she can't, then this matter is likely to end here. So, instead of taking the initiative, she handed over the opportunity to choose and let them decide. Chen Hui had no independent opinions. She instinctively looked at her own man, while Gu Xuesong pinched the person's palm and made the decision for her. Oh, why don't you take action? I can't ask, why are they keeping it for the Gu family? Just if it dares to harm its own wife, if it doesn't ask, it will die. Okay, then I'll take action. Yao Yao slowly walked towards the formation. Li Gui also sensed the opponent's movements and immediately struggled violently. Unfortunately, its cultivation had long been lost, so how could it struggle to break free from the bound array? I saw a meaty little hand resting on its head. In the next moment, a terrifying divine consciousness rushed into its body, and it felt its soul and body begin to tremble. At this moment, the cute Baozi's face also became particularly serious. She closed her eyes and flashed scenes in her mind. These are all memories of Li Gui. She quickly searched for content about Chen Hui, that's Gu Xuesong's wife. Money can make ghosts grind. What if she hires capable colleagues and finds out about me? Master, I know you have the ability. If it weren't for the high difficulty, how could I come to find you? How much is it? You can open it up as you please. Everything is ready, as long as you get her birth date and personal hair, this can be done. Excuse me, Master. This is your reward. Vaguely, Yao Yao saw two figures talking in a luxurious room. She was about to see their faces clearly when the person in the picture suddenly noticed something and shouted sternly, "Who's peeping?" Immediately, the image in her eyes paused, shaking like a mountain and starting to crack inch by inch. Yao Yao immediately launched a soul-searching state, and when he opened his eyes, he saw the fierce ghost, whose body suddenly burst into golden light. In the next moment, it exploded into countless pieces with a loud bang in front of everyone's eyes. With quick eyes and quick hands, it grabbed some broken soul bodies and sealed them into a small gourd. Shake it, it's not even half a gourd. Losing money, losing money. She held back her small mouth, her face full of regret. What could have been eaten in big gulps was all due to the Xianmen person who controlled the fierce ghost. When he noticed that she was searching for her soul, he directly detonated the slave seal. After planting this thing, life and death can no longer be controlled. So, many ghosts and monsters would rather die than be enslaved. So, did you find anything? Gu Xuesong looked over. Due to the constraints of the formation, the self-explosion of the fierce ghost did not cause any big waves in the room, and those present were relatively calm. There's a little gain, Yao Yao thought for a moment and asked how to tell his father. He lives in a big villa, still a man, thin and tall. It seems that he knows his father cares about his mother very much, that's why he took action against her. Moreover, he also stole his mother's hair in his birth date, so I don't know anything else. Although I didn't see my face, I spoke in detail about my body shape and conversation. Hair. Gu Xuesong's face darkened. This could be said to be a personal item, and without close contact or access to their room, it was impossible to obtain it. If we don't catch anyone who harms us, let's not talk about it yet. It's because our family had an inner ghost first. Stewardly, you go check and see who has entered Madam's room at home during this period. I have checked everything thoroughly. Gu Xuesong turned his head and instructed the elderly butler who was over 60 years old beside him, his voice so cold that it was terrifying. He roughly guessed that the other party was mostly his business enemy, unable to compete with him in the business circle, and actually engaged in such dirty methods. Don't let him find out, otherwise I won't let him die too easily. It is obvious that reaching into the house has already exceeded the bottom line that one can tolerate. Chapter 9. Got you. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Okay, with a little benefactor around, I can rest assured. Gu Xuesong's eyebrows relaxed when he heard this. Do I have a younger sister like this? Gu still felt incredulous at this moment. He is the youngest in his family, and he actually wants to have a younger sister more than the other brothers. However, when Chen Hui gave birth to him, he hurt his energy and couldn't have another child. In addition, there are indeed many males in the Gu family, so the matter of having a younger sister has not been mentioned again. Occasionally, Chen Hui would mutter a few words to herself. Master, please stay too. Our guest rooms are still empty, Gu Xuesong said to Qin Yun. Thank you, Mr. Gu. Yao Yao stayed, but Qin Yun was a bit reluctant to leave, mainly because she was afraid that people would be abducted by the Gu family. The lady of the Gu family's gaze at her precious nephew was so frightening that it was even more precious than her eyes. If it weren't for being clear that Yao Yao was picked up by his junior brother, he would have thought that it wasn't his own daughter who had been lost. Descendants are related to the fundamental principles of the sect. Qin Yun told herself that no matter how vigilant you are, it's not too much. After agreeing on the issue of staying overnight, everyone in the room dispersed and was taken to take a shower by the family nanny. The bathroom of Gu's family is very large, and she immediately fell in love with the large bathtub with bubbles and petals inside, which she has never experienced before. She took off her little Taoist robe and enjoyed playing inside. After putting in hot water twice, the servant was afraid that her skin would blister and reminded her to come out. Only then did it end reluctantly. Then, she silently added an item to her interest notebook in her heart. Taking a bubble bath. After drying his body, the servant changed Yao Yao into a silk pajama, which was sent by Chen Huilin. The size may not fit well, but it can be adjusted first. As for the appropriate one, Chen Hui has already made an appointment with a designer and will come over tomorrow to customize clothes for Yao Yao. They will be ready on the same day. Chen Hui reached out and carried the person into her arms, just as her soft body lay in bed. Did you feel comfortable washing? Chen Hui asked softly, afraid that people wouldn't get used to the bathtub at home. It's very comfortable. Yao Yao likes it very much. Yao Yao nodded at this moment. She felt so strange being held by Chen Hui. It was indescribable because it was the first time she had been held in this way by a woman. Although the old Taoist used to hug her, her feeling was completely different from now. This mother, who recognizes her as her daughter, has a fragrant and soft body, and speaks gently. She really likes it. She actually doesn't know her own background, she only knows that she has been following the old Taoist since she remembers. If she really had her own parents, she probably could only be like Chen Hui. So, she cherished this suddenly emerging mother very much, and her small hands gently embraced someone's arm. Will the bed be too soft and get used to sleeping? The movements of Xiaonai Tuanzi warmed Chen Hui's heart and she understood that the little girl was willing to get close to her. This time, her voice became softer because she likes soft beds. Her husband specially made the present bed when he got married. She fell asleep just in time, and the youngest son roast that he was too soft to sleep more than once. Yao Yao shook his head and said, "It's customary." She doesn't know how to recognize the bed and can fall asleep whenever she gets tired. Qing Han once said that besides having a big appetite, this child is very worry-free. Chen Hui cared about everything, and the mother and daughter got along quite harmoniously. Are you afraid? Thinking that I had seen a ghost today and looked tired and unable to sleep, I couldn't help but pause and ask. Ghosts and monsters are the main culprits. If someone is timid enough to encounter them, they can easily be scared and their souls will leave. Those who are bold are not without any problems. It is inevitable that they cannot sleep, and this is actually a manifestation of their unstable soul and body. There's one thing. Chen Hui didn't hold on forcefully. She knew very well about her abilities, and she didn't dare to sleep. She was afraid that the thing would crawl into her dreams again when she closed her eyes. The almost suffocating feeling made her scalp tingle. Yao Yao looked at the person with lingering palpitations on her face, paused, and then crawled out of the bed with a gurgling sound. What's wrong? Chen Hui let her go and then looked over in confusion. Let me help you, then, Yao Yao said with a sparkling grape eye as she spoke. She reached out to draw a talisman in the air and listened to her crisp recitation. Tai Shang Tai Xing, constantly adapting. Wisdom is clear and pure, mind is peaceful, and urgency is like a law. As the words fell, Yao Yao pinched the lotus seal in his hand and tapped it on Chen Hui's forehead. A cold spiritual energy rushed into his forehead and soul stage. This is the Xuanwen's calming spell, which serves to soothe the soul and is most suitable for calming the frightened soul. The higher the practitioner's cultivation level, the better the effect of this spell. Obviously, Yao Yao belongs to the top group. At this moment, Chen Hui felt the originally tense nerves relax due to this spiritual energy. Along with it came a long-lost drowsiness, which was not actually the effect of magic, but rather her body was already exhausted. However, the subconscious has been hanging on, and now erasing its hints, she can no longer resist drowsiness. She didn't even have time to say good night to Yao Yao, so she fell into a deep sleep. Upon seeing this, Yao Yao showed a sweet smile on his face and then slipped into the bed. Good night. She gave Chen Hui a soft kiss on the cheek. Her master told her that when it comes to treating her beloved elders, she can express her liking by kissing her cheek. Today, too many things happened. Not only did I find Master Qingyun, but I also recognized my mother. It turns out that going down the mountain is really interesting. Tomorrow, She will burn this good news to her master, so she thought happily. At the same time, my eyes gradually closed and I was ready to sleep. If I didn't sleep anymore, I wouldn't grow taller. Everyone, big and small, rested, and the huge room suddenly became particularly quiet. As it was getting late at night, there was no movement in the Gu family at the moment. Suddenly, the wudong tree outside the courtyard shook without warning. The temperature in the room was inexplicably cold, and a twisted white shadow crept out of the shadow. As Bying approached the bed little by little, just as she was about to move, a chubby little hand suddenly reached out and tightly grabbed Bai Ying's suspected neck. Bying obviously didn't expect anyone to grab her, because she was stuck in her neck and didn't scream at all. She could only struggle desperately. However, it was of no use at all. The hand was like a soldering iron, tightly grasping itself. Bying was shocked. I never expected that in just this short while, a strange monster could be found from somewhere in the Gu family. And the owner of the hand is none other than the one who should have slept soundly. At this moment, her pupils were so black that they looked like a cold pool deep in her mouth, making her hair stand on end. She sucked in her nose, the rich and sweet energy, making her face show a drunken expression. She smiled lightly and said, "Finally, I caught you." At this moment, the teasing in her eyes made her feel a maturity that was not in line with her age. Chapter 11. 8-section brocade, 7 Brother Live broadcast. You are listening at novel full.audio. Don't worry, sir. I'll take care of this now. Manager Lee nodded repeatedly. He was also greatly frightened by his wife's experience today, and at the same time, he was even more angry. After all, he was in charge of all the servants in the villa, and the appearance of an insider can be said to be a major mistake in his work. And for the new young lady at home, he was even more in awe. She was the master who could crush ghosts and monsters with her backhand, and he didn't know how the lady tricked people into entering the house. In the future, with this person in charge, what demons and monsters dare to come and take care of the family? Pure death. The old butler inexplicably felt that the Gu family was not safe anywhere now. The matter has been resolved, let's all go back to sleep. Gu Xuesong glanced at the clock hanging on the wall. At 3:30 in the morning, on a good night, let this ghost stir up a mess. Yao Yao could also see Gu Xuesong's annoyance. Don't worry, that person's spell was broken by me, and now it should be backfired by the spell. There's no way to harm anyone again. Many spells in the Xianmen sect are classified as unorthodox, because these types of spells have extremely strong backlash. Once the spell fails, the caster may die on the spot. And the lightest ones can also suffer great losses in cultivation, so it is forbidden not to practice. However, there are still many people who are attracted by the power of these spells and are willing to take risks. Well, it's been tough today. Tomorrow, I'll have the kitchen prepare more dishes and make up for it. Yao Yao expressed his agreement very seriously. The duck that had just reached her mouth flew away like this, and indeed needed delicious food to make up for her hurt heart. Seeing her sincerity, Gu Xuesong couldn't help but smile on his face. His preference for this cheap girl is really easy to grasp. As they came and went, there was a tacit understanding between the father and daughter, and Guyu beside them widened his eyes. This is the first time he has seen his father coax a child. Don't say, he coaxed so hard, so it's just his own sister who has to do this. Returning to the room, Guyu was originally a night owl, but after what had just happened, he didn't feel sleepy at all. After rolling back and forth for a few laps, he suddenly stood up and clicked on WeChat, sending the photo he had just taken to a WeChat group called 7 Sons of the Gu Family. Gu Xiaoqi. Spoilers and spoilers. Our little sister is really cool and brave, with sharp hands and ghosts. The whole family is worth having. Gu Xiaoqi. Image.jpg. There are a total of 7 people in this group, and even the group name has been very impressive. The group leader is obviously Gu Xiaoqi, and the rest are like the group name, the remaining 6 brothers of the Gu family. Normally, no one should have replied to this point, but the group quickly started ringing. Gu Lao. Lao Chi, why are you going crazy if you don't sleep in the middle of the night? Gu Er. However, Dad informed us that we have a new sister. It turns out she looks like this, isn't it too cute? It still needs to be our mom's judgment. Gu Lao San. Promoting ghosts and gods is considered spreading feudal dross. Laochi, don't think it's your own family, I won't catch it. When my performance is not enough one day, today's chat will be about presenting evidence in court. Gu Laochi. Third brother, you're still not human. Even my younger brother needs to be arrested. Guyu looked at the screen, his blood pressure skyrocketing in anger. His intention was to make this group of people jealous that he could get close to the water tower and establish a relationship with the younger sister first. Who knows, one by one, either cursing him or trying to catch him, is this still my own brother? Gu Laochi. Just wait, I'll see your jaw-dropping faces. He witnessed firsthand the unscientific and thoroughly shattered materialist views. Now, looking at the other people's sophistry, he seemed to have seen his original self, with an involuntary sneer on his lips. After being splashed with cold water by the two, he didn't feel in the mood to continue chatting and switched to the game interface, ready to play the game. WeChat private message suddenly popped up. Change.Mrs. Xiao Gu, why is your live broadcast time so different this month? The company has regulations that this must be completed, and starting tomorrow, you will make up 3 hours a day. Ultraman's Light. No, sister, it's now midnight at 4 o'clock. Do you want to squeeze it like this? On the other end of WeChat, it seems unexpected that he hasn't slept so late, and the message box prompts him to input. Change.Mrs. I didn't ask you to broadcast now. Change.Mrs. Considering that you have returned from the training, I will allow you to have a live broadcast at home this time. I will have someone watch your live broadcast room and don't want to run a train full of words for me. Gu Yu's face turned green. Isn't it because he was emotionally excited during the last live broadcast? How can he analyze scumbags for netizens? How could it be like running a train? It's really not going well anywhere. Gu Yu threw his phone aside and pulled over the blanket. He's not looking for trouble anymore, he can't sleep yet. 3 hours later, Gu Yu went downstairs in a daze. Before this, he never thought he would be unable to sleep due to insomnia. In the villa, only the servants are busy at the moment. Seeing him, the servant asked if he wanted breakfast. No need, Gu Yu waved his hand. He ate too much last night and still doesn't have an appetite. Then rest, I'll go make food for the young lady first. The servant nodded and turned to leave. Little sister woke up so early. Gu Yu heard this and sat up again, lying down. Where are the people? Why didn't you see them? His gaze swept around him. The servant looked a bit strange and said, Mississippi she is practicing boxing in the backyard. What kind of thing? Gu Yu's eyes, which were so sleepy that he couldn't open them, instantly regained consciousness, almost thinking that something was wrong with his ears. Early in the morning, a 3-year-old baby got up to practice boxing. Isn't it a member of their sect? Is it so convoluted? Let me take a look, she said as she stood up and walked outside. Soon, he saw his own cheap younger sister next to the rose garden, wearing the tattered Taoist robe from yesterday, practicing one move at a time. Gu Yu couldn't see the way out at all, but it didn't stop him from finding someone to talk to. So, what have you been practicing this morning? It's Ba Duan Jin. Yao Yao heard someone call him. She turned around and saw 7 brother with a tired face. She took the initiative to introduce her boxing style. This is a martial art for nourishing the body. Practicing it every day can relax the muscles and bones of the whole body. This is the favorite of the old Taoist, who said it can prolong life and bring her along every time. Because I also practice every day, I have become accustomed to getting up early and playing a routine. But when I came to visit my family, I didn't make any changes myself. So effective. Can you teach 7 brother? Gu Yu's eyes lit up immediately. Anyway, he can't sleep either. It's good to find something to pass the time and get close to his sister. Of course you can. Yao Yao nodded a bit and said, little brain Gua. She usually practices alone, which is a bit boring. Wait for Chiga for a moment, Chiga will go get something. As if suddenly remembering something, Gu Yu quickly ran back to the room. In no time, he came over with a rack and put his phone on it. Under Yao Yao's gaze, he finally opened the live broadcast room. Alright, let's practice. Yes, Gu Yu needs to make use of his time, not only to pass the boredom, but also to mix up enough time in the live broadcast room. Didn't Qin say that she wouldn't let herself talk nonsense? He doesn't say it, learning to practice boxing directly is very suitable. Okay, little did she know what 7 brother was up to, and she didn't understand anything about live streaming. Because there's not even a TV on the mountain. Let's get started. Gu Yu was also too lazy to introduce himself in the live broadcast room. What kind of person could there be in the early morning? Let's take a look. However, this is just the feeling of the 7th young master of the Gu family, and his live broadcast room is destined to not be peaceful today.